Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Trainz, Trainz Classic, Trainz 2019, not Trainz Classic, I lied, Trainz 2019. I finally get to do a video on my road. I completely forgot that this thing existed. So, what are we looking at? We're looking at the Texas and Pacific H2 282. So I've said it a few times in my videos. The Texas and Pacific is my preferred railroad. That's the road I model. That's the road that I research. And as far as train simulators go, it's almost non-existent. Green Coast Studios did a version of 610 a long while ago, the 210-4s, and a few updates now to the game have pretty much rendered the Green Coast model broken. So I've been reluctant to do a video on that one because it being broken, and I also know he's pretty much left the Trainz scene, so I don't know if you can even still get them. So I haven't been able to do a Texas and Pacific video, which has made me royally sad. I haven't gotten to play with the one road that I actually enjoy. But I completely forgot these things existed. These are freeware that you can get on the download station. I believe the original model is Ben Deal. I don't know who actually did the repaint though, or who added the extra details. All I know is it's from the download station. I actually did not go to any website to find this. It is simply found on the DLS. But it's actually fairly accurate. So as far as the history goes, the TNP, they ended up with a series of USRA 282s designated the H1s. They were assigned these locomotives. They were short-lived because the USRA opted to send them a handful of coal-burning locomotives, and at this point the TNP had gone pretty much to all oil-burning. So coal burners were practically worthless to them. And so those locomotives were fairly short-lived. However, they did actually like the power and the versatility of the 282s. They did do about 6 months or so of service with the TNP before being traded away for some oil-burning models. And then they were given another handful of locomotives which were oil-burning, and they were all designated the H2s. And underneath all this is a USRA like Mikado. But there are some pretty noticeable differences. Starting with, we have an Elsco feedwater heater up front. That's probably one of the most noticeable things right off the bat, as well as our pumps being up on the front with windshields up on them. And then, of course, we got our oil bunker back here and a doghouse on the tender, the cap on the stack, hooded headlight, overhanging bell. So yeah, this was the version of the 282 that the TNP opted to keep, and it's also pretty good service. Unfortunately, none of these survive. They were all scrapped during the changeover years, which really is quite sad, as 282s are a popular design to be restored, as we've seen this past year, this recent years. But 282s are a pretty popular design to have been kept. Just a very generic locomotive, good for just about anything and everything. And the TNP liked them. They just opted to end up scrapping just about all of their steam locomotives outside of 2 propers and an adopted child. So, and unfortunately, this is the really and truly the one and only proper TNP steam locomotive we have in really any train simulator now. I believe MSTS had some of the 210-4s. I do not play MSTS though, so as far as Trainz and Trainz Simulator Classic does not have a single TMP prototype in it at all. If one really wanted to, during the diesel era, TMP was a big buyer of the GP9s, GP7s, F7s, and such. So those are out, or rather, those prototypes are out there. I don't believe anybody's done a reskin of them. As far as Trainz go, somebody has done a really decent model of the F7s. I have not gotten to sit around to take a look at them yet. But as far as the GP9s, GP7s, and such go, nobody's really done any in recent years. There's some really old models out there that just kind of look pitiful, but this is probably the best looking of the TMP stuff, and probably the most realistic, most up to date. And it is, to my knowledge, the one and only steam locomotive. Like I said, Green Coast Studios had done the 210-4 a while back, and it just it doesn't work anymore. It sounds wrong, and it's just, yeah. He doesn't do anything with Trainz anymore. So let's take a look at this beast. I love this thing. I love the way it sounds. I will say I am biased. I will admit it. It is my road. It is the road I enjoy. So I am a little bit biased. I do love it, but I am going to try to be as picky as I am with the rest of my stuff. So like right off the bat, there's a lot of the texturing that's kind of dated, to say the least. So like our water and oil capacities here, those are all almost illegible, especially compared to the numbering. The numbering looked great, lettering not so much. And then for the tender, for the sides, the lettering looks decent until you get up close to it. It's very blurry, which, yeah, a little bit sad, but like I said, it is an older model, so I am going to try to be fair, it being older. Yeah, there are no rivet details. The rivets are part of the Photoshop texture. A lot of the objects are pretty flat. So like this, we don't even have kind of these flat chains that are pretty ugly. The flat object here with the Photoshop texturing on it. It's a very dated model. There's also no real round edges. Everything's squared off. I also don't think this thing has a cab. Ah, it does have a cab. What do you know? I lied. Huh. Color me impressed. It does have a cab. You're gonna have a hell of a time shoveling coal, though. Ain't no coal. No coal to shovel. As you guys know, I don't like cabs and trains anyway, so not such an issue. Apparently our generator is not running, which is interesting. Headlight. There's our generator. And the smoke particles are a good foot above the pipe here. It's kind of interesting. I don't know what this light is. I don't know why it's there. I don't know what it's doing. It disappears when I look at it this way. It disappears when I look at it this way. Then I look at it this way and it pops up there. So, a little bit of an irk. Main headlight actually looks pretty decent. Overall, it's not bad. It's definitely an older headlight. It almost looks more like I'm looking at an older movie, but it's not bad. No weird bright flares going on with it, and it's not neon white as is ever too common, so that's nice. We do have lighted marker lights on the tender, which is quite nice. I don't believe I can light the marker lights up on the locomotive. Yeah, I can't. So that's our dim Dim looks pretty decent too. And then let's see, what do we got? We got our bell. I'm not a fan of the bell. I won't lie there. I don't like the bell. The bell has a lot of background noise going on with it. The actual bell sound in the background isn't bad. It's just it has a lot of forefront extra sound to it. It's just isn't too good. Ambient noise isn't bad. Whistle. That is a gorgeous whistle. Like I said, I am a little bit biased, but that is an absolutely gorgeous whistle. There is a little bit of a noticeable pop where the beginning loop and the recurring middle loop take over, but other than that, it's just an absolutely gorgeous whistle. Texture-wise, our barrel bands are flat. And it's weathered to the point that it's almost too dark to really see much of anything, which is kind of off for a TMP model. So these obviously would not have gotten a lot of coal dust because there's no coal. But it would have been more oily. Oil burning locomotives got oily. However, these would have a different kind of weathering than the 210-4s would have had, because these locomotives traveled a little more universally across the TMP system, whereas the 210-4s really could not run into like East Texas, Louisiana, and such. That direction was pretty well dominated by the 462s and the 280s, 460s, smaller locomotives. The larger stuff couldn't really go east of Dallas very often. I believe due to track limitations, but this was one of the more universal designs to do, kind of do all and all, as is pretty typical with the 2A2s. But let's take it down the road. I don't like the smoke. Don't like smoke at all. It's just, oh, that is such a good sounding whistle. Being a Texas and Pacific fan, it is frustrating how little there is out there of the TMP, even of 610. So, for those of you that don't know a little bit about the railroad, Texas and Pacific 610 is a 210-4 I-1A of the second batch of 210-4s that the Texas Pacific ordered. And 610 was restored at the Fort Worth Stockyards and pulled the American Freedom Train throughout Texas during its time in Texas. It traded off with 4449, the GS4. And then once the American Freedom Train left, 610 was loaned out to the Southern Steam program. Southern wanted their crews to gain experience with a larger locomotive, because up till that point the Southern Railroad had never really fiddled with a large locomotive for their excursion program. I know they had tried they had loaned out various other locomotives, typically Pacifics and they wanted something bigger to pull heavier, longer trains with, and so with 610 being freshly restored, who better to take over? And so she served with the excursions for a while, and then came back to Texas once that time was over, and has it was donated to the Texas State Railroad and has sat dormant ever since. So that's really where the Texas Pacific as a railroad kind of gets its fame, is with the 610. The 610's really kind of drug it along. Other than that, it's a relatively unknown railroad outside of those who are familiar with Texas or familiar with the Texas type. The 210-4 got its name from the Texas Pacific Railroad. They were the very first to purchase and put into service the 210-4 arrangements, hence the nickname Texas type. Outside of that, it's a relatively unknown railroad, so it's not surprising to me to see so little of it modeled, both in the model railroading world and in Train Simulator. But it is surprising to me when I get to hear proper recordings of whistles, bells, chops, anything to do with Texas Pacific, because even with 610 being part of Southern's excursion program, there's not a whole ton of audio footage out there of 610. So there's not a lot to go off of with what she's supposed to sound like. And that's even more so true of the rest of the Texas Pacific's steam locomotive fleet. There's almost nothing out there as far as video proof. There's almost nothing audio. There's really nothing that exists. I know up north, not too terribly long ago, I believe it was a couple years ago, one of the little excursion railroads actually got hold of a Hancock whistle from, I believe, one of the Texas and Pacific's 462s. One of the and their locomotive wore it for a couple days, and so there is now video footage of what one of the Hancocks from the TMP sounds like. Now, it's not quite proper for 610 per se. 610 has more of a steamboat style Hancock, which has a very noticeable shrilly chime to it. But this whistle on this locomotive is actually pretty spot on for what that whistle is supposed to sound like. So it's really a joy to hear. It's really a joy to hear. I love anything to do with the route or with the railroad. I model it all the time, and even in the model railroading world, there's just very, very little out there sound-wise. I know somebody's going to say, oh, Broadway Limited. The Broadway Limited models do not sound good. I'm sorry for those of you that love them, but they don't sound right for 610. But as far as the steam locomotives go, it's just nothing out there. So that whistle that just thrills me to death. It sounds awesome. Now, these locomotives typically would have been regulated to freight services. You really wouldn't have seen them on the passenger services. The TMP had their 482s and 462s for that work. I don't know of any documentation out there where one of these ever pulled a passenger service, but I do know these were pretty well liked for their freight services, and they did their job pretty well. Those of you that have been watching my videos for a while, you know I love a good quality sound. I mean, like I said, there's that noticeable pop, but other than that, it's just, in general, a good sounding whistle. Not just for the fact that it being a Texas Pacific model, it's just, that's a good sounding whistle. It has a good start, a good end, a good loop, not long, drawn out. Doesn't have any weird extended looping or any tunes. It's a good sounding whistle for a train simulator. The chef sounds are alright. They're not my favorite. The chef sounds sound like they were taken from an old video. Now, like I say, it's pretty easy to fix that in Trainz. Trainz Simulator has one of the easiest sound modifying systems I've ever fiddled with. Literally just go into the literally just download whatever sound you want and just change the QUID file, the QUID number, and bam, you're good to go. It's so stinking easy, so it's not hard to remedy that. I don't like the chef sounds all that much. I think they're kind of pitiful. They're not deep enough. They sound like something. See, that sounds pretty good. Yeah, the smoke is not. Smoke doesn't do it for me. Aw, no tender view. Only the cab. It does actually have some nice ambient with the cab, I won't lie. Yeah, that start off chuff isn't too bad. It's got a nice deep boom to it, but kind of mellows out a little bit fast in my opinion. It just kind of turns into a real quiet. But yeah, guys, there it is. The Texas and Pacific H2s. 282s. Now the pride of my Trainz collection. I love it. It thrills me. I love it. I love seeing T&P stuff finally get a little bit of representation. A little bit of foot in the ground. Man, that whistle. That is a good sounding whistle. Such a good sounding whistle. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing something a little bit different. You know, it's not the typical Union Pacific or PRR or Santa Fe locomotive with most simulators focus on. I'm not hating on those, but it is nice to see some different stuff like this. Something a little bit off the beaten path. Something that kind of gets away from the typical of a train simulator. So, and of course, like I said, I am a little bit biased. I love the T&P. Is the route I follow, the route I research, and the route I model. So, hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time.